his first starting action against the Cowboys was a great first step. I mean, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I think just the way he handled himself from a demeanor standpoint, the way he prepared throughout that entire week against a really good defense, and the way he handled himself even when he had adversity during the game was outstanding for a guy for his first start at the end of the year. You know what I mean? So I know he's working really hard where he's training right now to be ready for the springtime, and I know the receivers were excited to get ready to help him out.
Terry, I'm sure you probably already answered this already, but what does it mean to you to have a guy like Eric Bieniemy, that kind of caliber of a coach, come here to D.C.?
Definitely. He's a champion, a multiple-time champion, and nobody in this building outside of maybe Coach Rivera and a few other people have experienced that, especially recently. And he knows what it takes to get to the mountaintop, and that's what we're all chasing. That's why we come to work every day. And I like his demeanor a lot. I like how serious he is about his business. I like that he lets everybody know what his expectations are, so there's no confusion when we step out on the field, what's expected of us all. And I like that he's competitive and wants to be aggressive, and also cares about straining. You know what I mean? I think effort's a big thing in this game, and a lot of times the wins and losses that we've had a lot of 1-2 score games, close games. The difference is 1 to 2 plays, maybe a little strain here, a little strain there. And I think that marries well with the guys we got in this locker room, honestly, because effort was never an issue with our offense.
Can you describe the moment when you saw on the news feed or whatever that Eric was coming here?
Oh, it was, I kind of had the inside source. Coach Rivera, him and I have had a great relationship, and he didn't have to. He really, told me that Coach EB was coming, and he was excited that he got the guy that he wanted, and I think he's really going to be the guy that can help us take the next step of our offense and our team. And hearing how excited he is about the plethora of guys we got on this offense, I think is extremely exciting. And I'm excited to see how we add to this group in the offseason, how the front office does what it takes to help us take those next steps along with Coach EB.
Terry, it sounds like some hard coaching is coming from hearing that.
Yeah.
How ready is this group for hard coaching?
Yeah, I think you have to be ready for hard coaching. I think it's something that it's not challenging for myself. You don't necessarily know how everybody's going to react to tough challenging, and I think Coach EB knows when to push guys and when not to, but I think we're all serious about our business, and we know that it's going to take something different to get to where we want to get to. Obviously, what we have been doing up until this point hasn't worked out the best, and he brings that championship pedigree that we've been missing. He brings the attitude, he brings the expectations that I feel like to really help us take the next step. And as a leader, I just want to, be open to that coaching and make sure our guys know that it's never coming from a personal place. I feel like, I think you have to really understand what we're trying to get accomplished, and know that it has to take some honest conversation, because that's the only way you're going to get better is honest conversation.
I think the biggest thing is there's so much credibility in Washington. And as he said, from the time he played as a high school player, collegiate player, and NFL player, he had success. And then now you add upon that his growth and his development as a coach, and then having the success he had, it's instant credibility. And I think that's one of the more important things for our guys, is that they're looking at a guy that's been there, that's done that, that's had the success. So when he speaks, I mostly know everybody's going to listen.
There's going to be some transition, perhaps, with ownership here. How important is your job to keep that out of the minds of the players and have them worry about other things and concentrate on other stuff?
Well, and that'll be the big thing is, just make sure players understand that, right now that's just interesting. The most important thing is just focusing on themselves, focusing themselves on the team, and focusing on the development of the relationship with Coach Bieniemy as we go forward.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate that. Thank you.
A little late to the party here, but obviously new offensive coordinator. Take me through that process, and obviously you had to play the waiting game a little bit, right?
Yes, we did. Well, as we were getting ready for the process, one of the things I did was I reached out to the league and I asked the league for their list. And what they do is they accumulate a list every year of candidates, and got the candidate list. We went through it. I shared it with Marty Herney. I shared it with Martin Mayhew. I shared it with Eric Stokes, and I asked them to give me their top guys. I took their top guys, my top guys, and we came up with a list of about 12 guys and went down the list, did some background on all those guys, and then reached out, got some analytics from some people, looked at those things, and everything kept pointing to certain guys. Those guys were the guys that I brought in and did my initial interviews with, knowing in the back of mind this was going to be a long process. I reached out, let the ownership know what I was doing, and each time as I started whittling down the list, I would give them the list of names. And then I finally asked, I said, look, I know this can be a very long process. Do you have any issue with me going through it and waiting for Eric Bieniemy? I want to interview him as well. They granted permission. They said, absolutely, you take your time, make sure you do this right. Let's wait for the best candidates. And so that was the last thing I had to do. We were getting later in the process, and I just continued to watch the playoff games and continue the interviewing process that I did with the other guys. I mean, everybody that I interviewed was the top portion of that list that I had gotten from the league. So they gave me a very good list of guys. I'm really excited about them, and just waiting for Eric. And then once once the game was over, I called Rob Rogers, said, Rob, send the list in so we can get the interview process going. I contacted Coach Reed. He was gracious, very great about it, and just said, this is something that, knowing Eric, that he would like to do. So we got permission. I talked to some of the coaches that I've worked with that were working with Eric at the time. Everything they said was positive. Reached out to some players that I talked to. They were all positive. So the next step was obviously talking with Eric, getting that set up, and then getting the opportunity to bring Eric in for the interview.
Ron, you probably already answered this. You have already answered this question, but what was that moment like when you're going through the interview process and you saw Eric Bieniemy was interested in coming here and you could possibly get him?
Well, I was very excited about just the fact that he wanted to come and interview, and I thought that was a good start for us. One of the things that I really appreciated when he first got in, some of the first things he talked about was our roster. We talked about how he felt about Sam. That was really one of the first questions I asked everybody about, was about our roster and how they felt about Sam. And everything I got from all those guys was all positive, so I felt really good. But then listening to him talk about how he saw Sam, potentially saw with Sam, I thought was a good thing. But then listening to him as he talked about a plan for Terry and a plan for Jahan, plan for Curtis, and how he felt about the running game, how he liked to use the tight end, how he thought it's important to have the tight end involved. And then we both felt that there were a couple of spots that we did most certainly have to improve on and fix. Those were things that really told me that he's been paying attention these last few days in his preparation for this opportunity to sit down and talk to me, was that he had an idea of where he wanted to go. That was really good. We talked about his philosophy, and just listening to him talk about it, how important it is to it doesn't matter, what you do or anything like this, just how do you do it? You do it to the best of your ability. You do it as he talked about, with great effort, and that I found exciting. But then what was real interesting was it wasn't really about running the football or throwing the football. It was about playing complementary football at the moment. What is it going to take for us to win? These are the things that I wanted. I want to do what we feel we have to do to win. And that was really an important conversation, because we talked about that. I mean, a lot has been made about when Martin made the statement about we want to be a 2-to-1 run to pass ratio. And the thing everybody understand is that 2-to-1 comes at the end of the game when you've got a lead. Now you've got to run it. By the time you're done, you've run it more than you've thrown it. That's the thing that we want to get across. But we want to do what it takes to score points, to put us in that position, and then run the football to finish the game off. That's a big part of it. But you've got to be able to score. And how do you do that? You got to get the ball in your playmakers' hands. That was another big topic conversation we had, was how can we get the ball to Terry? How can we get the ball to Jahan? How do we use Curtis to the best of his ability? And then our running game. He's a running back. We got into a couple conversations. He got really excited about running the football because of our guys. So there was a lot of positive energy, things that really got me excited about him.
You kind of look at this as like a three-headed monster, where obviously Jack Del Rio was a former head coach. You're a head coach. Eric Bieniemy has the credentials to be a head coach.
Well, the other neat thing too is if you look at it, the three of us all played in the league. You throw Martin Mayhew in the mix, and you throw Jason Wright into the mix, and you've got a number of guys that have that kind of background and experience. Now it's a chance for us to put it all together and win football games and get us into that type of position. So that's what we're working for more so than anything else.
Hey, Ron, with the offense, with what he talked about, was it more in terms of style, changing things, or more just emphasizing certain things?
Well, I think it's about emphasizing certain things, and it was really interesting because if you listen to things he talked about, some of the terminology is going to change. Some of the concepts we're going to keep and use, and some of the concepts are going to be a little bit different. So it's not as if we're coming in and just scrapping everything we did. It's just an idea of how we're going to do it and how we're going to use it. And again, one of the things that I listening to him was talking about what I got from watching them specifically during the postseason, I try to watch and really pay attention, focusing on how they were doing things. And I kept thinking to myself, wow, we got guys that can do that. Terry can do that. Jahan can do that. We got a running backs that can do those things. We got a couple of tight ends I feel that can grow and develop into that guy. I think Logan can be a guy that we can use even more so now that he's back and healthy. So there were a lot of things that just I kept saying, God, we can do those things.
Is this a wholesale scheme change in your mind?
No, because again, as he said, it's about terminology more. It's about anything else, and that's getting used to the way he calls things, the way he sees things. And my initial thought was I'd like to see if we can keep this as similar as possible. But then the realization that if we're going to change, we got to change. We got to stress our guys to learn it, make them commit to go out and do these things so they can be accountable to one another. That I thought was really important. And again, listening to him talk about that, it really made a lot of sense. It really excited me about it.
So having a young quarterback, and kind of changing things up year one from year two, how do you kind of help Sam along with that transition?
Well, I think a big part of it would be, how things go in OTAs and minicamps. I think one thing that I do know is that Sam's excited. I've had a couple conversations with him about, what was happening as far as, going through this process. I talked to Terry a little bit about this, talked to a couple of the other guys that I'd see around, and just kind of let them know where we are and listen to their excitement. And then when I told these guys, Eric's the guy I was going to hire, to a man, they were all excited about it. So it was really kind of neat. It was kind of cool to have them on board as quickly as we did.
What's the next step for the O then? This was obviously a big problem solved to improve it. What's next?
Well, the next big thing is, we're going through really all the positional coaches' assignments, duties, jobs, what he wants, how he wants to do some things with these guys, do some things a little bit differently, which has been a really good conversation. In fact, it was one of the things that we were working on before this started. We talked about what his assistant head coaching duties are going to be. He's going to handle all the paperwork. He's going to handle all the arduous conversations he has with you guys about what's going on outside of football. I'll just stick to football. This is a joke. Relax. God Almighty. But one of the duties he will have as an assistant head coach is he will help with a lot of the planning. One thing I said, look, this is what I've typically done, but what I'd like to do is adapt some of the things that you've done. I know Andy does some things a little bit differently. Let's talk about these things. Let's find ways to be able to put all these things into it a little bit more. So I'll rely on him as far as those things are concerned. One thing I'd like him to do is spend a little bit more time as we go through the draft process, so he gets an opportunity to interact a little bit more with Martin, with Marty, with Eric, and Gribble. So he gets a better feel for all that and gets behind the scenes a little bit more.
At what point did he become your primary target for this position?
I think probably after my first week of going through this, and I said initially my thought process was I wanted to keep everything as close as possible, but then as I started watching the postseason, I began to realize, if we're going to change and find ways to do things differently, let's really look at it. And then the more I watched Kansas City, the more things I saw. I was really impressed with a lot of things that San Francisco was doing. That's why I interviewed Anthony Lynn, who I thought was terrific and did a tremendous job. So there was a lot of guys that really got my attention, but at the end of the day, watching the games and then coming back here and then watching some tape of Kansas City, I just felt stronger and stronger about it. The hard part about it was not being able to talk to them because, they're in the playoffs. So what I did was as soon as the game was over, the Super Bowl was over, I had Rob Roberts send the permission form in. I texted Coach to let him know I sent it in. So it was late night. I knew I wouldn't hear anything until the next morning, which I did. I heard from Coach, and they had granted permission. So then we were able to reach out to him and tell him, hey, we would love to have you come in.
What was the conversation with Coach Reed like?
It was excellent. I mean, he was so supportive, very gracious about Eric, and he thinking, creating an opportunity for him to do something different. And we talked about, what he did with Eric. He was very forthright about how Eric handled most of the stuff, most of the planning, most of the preparation, how they worked together in play calling and stuff like that. And this really seemed like, an opportunity that I really started to feel even better about. Just hearing from Coach Reed. I talked to a couple of coaches that he's worked with, that I worked with, that were all very complimentary, and heard from some of their players as well. And that was also a really huge positive for me.
Ron, after going through the review of the season on that, what is that you felt this offense needed most?
Well, just one thing, I really looked at some of the things that they were doing that I really felt we could do. And getting the ball into the playmakers' hands quickly, I thought was one thing. Whether it's a quick slant, a quick dart, whether it was some sort of bubble screen or it was a play action, throw a 9-round, something like that. Just getting the ball in their hands, we felt would be a really good plus. And it was, one of the things that, again, looking at what they were doing and how they were doing some things in that fashion, I felt really could fit our guys. I really did.
How can that fit Sam?
I think because Sam's got a quick release, he's got quick twitch, he makes quick decisions. He's learned to do certain things, certain aspects of what he's done throughout the year. And I know most of it was practice. Big portion of it was watching the preseason games again and looking at him and then figuring he has that ability. And then you see it, most notably you see the 2 throws he throws to Jahan on the quick slants and seeing how explosive Jahan was. You look at Terry's first touchdown catch was an option route off of the Mike Backer, how quickly he got past him, the ball was in his hands, and next thing you know, Terry's clear and free running for a touchdown. So those were some of the things that you get excited about.
Given how many times Eric interviewed as a head coaching job, how fortunate do you feel that he was on your radar and wanted this job, given how experienced he is?
I feel very fortunate. First of all, I can empathize with him because I went through the same thing. I interviewed 8-9 times before I got my opportunity, and I know it's the same thing for him, is that eventually you're going to get that opportunity. I went from Chicago where I got 6-7 interviews, and Lovie Smith being a defensive head coach. And so there's always that perception. Go to San Diego, get the opportunity to be a coordinator again, and then get my job. So, I got away from it. I worked for an offensive head coach, thinking that maybe there's something there. This is the second time I've gotten a coordinator from Coach Reed. The first time the coordinator I got was Sean McDermott. And look at where Sean is today. So who knows? Maybe this will be a good thing for Eric, which I'm hoping. Like he said, we're going to live in the now, and that's about getting back to winning football games and getting the fans back in the stands. Because again, we saw how explosive and exciting they can be, especially in the last game against Dallas. I think there's a chance for it. It really is, and I'm excited about it.
In terms of how
wanting to get the best guy. Was it important to you to get outside of your own comfort zone?
Yes, it was. It was to go beyond what I'm used to and what we had done in the past for football. I mean, we had basically the same style of offense for 12 years. But looking again, as I said, watching it on TV, seeing them in the playoffs, and just thinking, God, we have pretty good talent. I think we can do a lot of the things that they're doing currently.
What was Dan Snyder's role in this? And he's been hands-on in the past, obviously, but what was his role in this? And did this potential ownership change, complicate your recruiting?
It really didn't. I mean, it was one of the questions that did come up, but throughout the process, Mr. Snyder's been very supportive. The offseason, he's been very supportive. We talked about certain things that we had to do with the coaching staff. He was great about it. And then as I started this process, and I said, look, this may take a little bit longer. I want to interview Eric Bieniemy. And he said, absolutely, as long as it takes. If he goes all the way, I said, they may go to the Super Bowl and they may win it. He said, that's fine. Hey, let's just make sure we get the right guy. And that was really the message I got from him, and I really appreciated, just the support. And then once we did it, and we got him, and then it was like, well, we're going to change some things. And, well, change what you need to change. Just make sure you guys get what you need to get. So he's been great, and he's allowed me to go forward and do the things I needed to do.
Is it important to solidify the offensive staff before the combine?
Yes, it is, but we may not. The biggest thing that we have to do right now, and we want to make sure we get it right, and that is we have everybody assigned to what we want them to do. He and I are going through their job responsibilities right now, and we started that this morning and talking very specific position by position by position. He's got some different ideas. He's got some different things than the standard. So we're going to try and make sure we do it the right way. So we're taking our time, and if we're not ready to have everybody in place when we go, so be it. But the one thing we want to make sure we do is we do it the right way.
Ron, during the season, you spend more time with these coaches than your own family sometimes. Why was Eric the right fit for you?
Because for him, and getting to know him over the years, it really is about family. I mean, he's a terrific family man as well. And so you just really see him wanting to get to know people and get involved with people other than just day-to-day practice, meetings, that type of stuff. It's hey, let's make sure this is what's happening, and it's happening the right way.
He likes to really get on guys. You've had Pete Hayner, you've had John Masco. Is he like those guys like we hear in practice?
He is, from what I've been told. He's out there. He's very vocal, very demanding, and they tell me it doesn't matter who you are. He's going to say something, and it's going to be directed at holding everybody accountable.
Was that how much of the personality was interesting to you as well as what you saw on tape from the Chiefs?
The personality was very important. It really is very demonstrative. But the thing that and I was asked this question earlier, the credibility. The guy that coached it on every level, played it at the highest level, and has had the highest success you can have, walks into the room and the credibility just it oozes out there. So I'm excited about what it'll mean for our players in terms of getting to see him as he gets up there and presents.
How impressed were you that the Chiefs were able to still be dynamic and explosive after Tyreek Hill left?
Very impressed, because when you look at it, it really wasn't about one guy. It was as much as about getting the ball spread. You guys know that's one of the things I always talked about, is spreading the ball around and having different people touching it. And when you saw that, and again, going through the playoffs and watching those, it really stuck to me when they got to the divisional rounds and you got a chance to watch them offensively. And it just really, I kept thinking to myself, God, Terry can do that. I mean, that's what Jahan does right there. We run that running play, and oh man, that's a deep ball. I mean, those are the things that you sit there and I just really kept thinking, I like that.
Yeah, just I would say just the creativity. That really stands out to me. The way they get different guys the ball, getting guys in space, utilizing their guys very well. It's really cool to just see that success at the highest level of football, and knowing that you get to work with someone who was doing that stuff is definitely pretty cool.
And then, what do you think it means for a guy like Sam to get this kind of opportunity now after what we just saw in the Super Bowl and everything we've seen with him as OC in KC?
Yeah, it's really cool. Coach Bieniemy coming from a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who's arguably the best quarterback in the league, and being able to work with such a talented guy like Sam, you just can't wait to see how he's going to flourish in his system and make the plays that we know he can make. So I'm really excited for him. I'm really excited for the guys in the room. Really excited for myself, and can't wait for the opportunity.
Thanks for making time.